Welcome back to Grimverse History, where we uncover the strange and forgotten sides of history. Tonight we follow Isabella of France, a queen remembered as a monster, who learned to survive by becoming feared. This is the story of how love curdled into strategy, and patience sharpened into revenge. A queen watched a man be torn apart alive. That man ruled England in her husband's place, and she had waited years for this moment. This is not a story about jealousy. It is about what happens when a king refuses to rule and a woman decides she will. You stand beneath grey skies soaked by November rain. You hear iron scraping wood and crowds holding their breath. You sense power shifting, slow and irreversible. You realize this is not chaos. This is calculation finally stepping into daylight. If hidden histories like this pull you closer, gently like the video and subscribe to the channel and tell us where you are watching from tonight, as this story crosses borders, crowns and centuries. Now modern noise loosen its grip on you. Imagine cold stone halls, heavy silks, guarded silence. Feel a court where listening mattered more than speaking. It is the year 1326. England is restless and loyalty feels dangerously thin. A king still wears his crown, but a queen has already decided he will not keep it. The story opens beneath a heavy wet sky. The ground feels soft and boots sink slowly. A tall structure rises over Hereford's muddy silence. It looks less like justice, more like theater. The crowd gathers, not for law, but certainty. You stand close enough to taste cold air. You hear ropes creak and people stop breathing. There is no romance here, only consequences. This is not a private punishment behind stone doors. This is a public message delivered without paperwork. The favorite stands above them, exposed to judgment. His power once hid behind the king's smile. Tonight that smile does not protect anyone. Isabella watches from the front, perfectly still. Her face holds no prayer and no apology. She does not look like a grieving wife. She looks like someone closing an overdue account. In this world, queens are trained for softness. They plead for mercy and call it virtue. Isabella chooses a different language tonight. She lets the crowd do the speaking for her. She understands spectacle travels faster than messengers. A staged ending teaches the living how to behave. You can feel the lessons spreading through bodies nobles notice, because nobles always notice first. Commoners notice, because fear has good hearing. The execution is designed to be unforgettable. It is not only punishment, but public instruction. It says the court will not be hijacked again. It says access to the king has a price. It says the country is not a personal vault. Some call this revenge because it simplifies things. Revenge is emotional, and emotions sound human. But patience built this moment. Brick by brick, Isabella waited through insults and quiet humiliations. She watched favoritism turn governance into a joke. Dry humor survives best in desperate rooms. A king loves a favorite and loses a kingdom. That is not tragedy, it is mismanagement. You watch the crowd absorb that cold conclusion. Nobody needs a sermon to understand the warning. Silence does the work, and it costs nothing. Then the air shifts, and the murmurs return. People will repeat this scene for many years. They will call her a wolf, because wolves frighten them. They will forget how cages can teach teeth. The human value hides in an uncomfortable place. When power becomes private, the weak always pay. When power becomes public, everyone witnesses the cost. If justice must speak, let it speak carefully, because cruelty is easy and dignity is rare. You can hate the method and see the message. You can fear the queen and learn restraint. History rarely offers clean heroes for sleep. It offers choices and asks what you keep tonight. Remember the victims behind the symbols. Then remember your own gentleness while awake. Vengeance makes a point and keeps receipts. The wedding day arrives, wrapped in borrowed hope. Candles burn bright and banners pretend permanence. You stand inside a cathedral heavy with expectation. Silk brushes stone and music fills high arches. This is supposed to be a beginning, but beginnings reveal priorities quickly. Edward does not look toward his new queen. His attention drifts unembarrassed. Jewels meant for Isabella change direction, mid-air. They settle against another man's chest instead. You notice the pause ripple through the crowd. Royal protocol cracks without making a sound. The coronation feast continues. loudly polite, painfully precise. Seats are reassigned with careless arms quietly disappear. New symbols rise, and nobody explains why. You feel the room recalibrate its loyalties. This humiliation is not private or accidental. For a young queen, the lesson arrives early. Power does not always announce itself with violence. Sometimes it smiles in your attention and keeps eating. Edward's favoritism speaks more clearly than decrees. It tells everyone who matters and who waits you sit beside Isabella, though nobody notices. She learns quickly what noise can cost. She learns silence buys time, not safety. Each ignored glance sharpens her awareness. Each public slight becomes carefully catalogued memory. She does not react, and that restraint is strategic. Silence here is not weakness, but insulation. The court watches her closely for missteps. A single complaint could become permanent damage. So she lowers her eyes and survives ceremonies. She smiles through banquets designed to exclude her. Dry humor lives quietly behind composed expressions. A king loves freely, while a queen calculates consequences. Years pass, measured by births and careful gestures. Isabella produces heirs because duty still functions. Edward continues monetizing favorites over governance. The court adapts because adaptation beats punishment. You feel the imbalance grow heavier with time. Favoritism becomes policy without formal paperwork. The silence around Isabella thickens into habit. Courtiers stop addressing her unless necessary. Information travels around her, not through her. This isolation teaches patience with sharp edges. She learns listening reveals more than speaking. Sometimes survival begins by disappearing in plain sight. From this quiet, a longer memory forms. She remembers faces during moments of disrespect. She remembers who laughed and who looked away. Every insult becomes future leverage, carefully stored. You sense restraint hardening into something durable. The room stays warm, but trust feels colder. Edward believes silence means acceptance or defeat. Silence, when chosen, often means observation. Observation over time becomes preparation. Preparation rarely announces its arrival politely. This is the human value hidden beneath etiquette. Endurance teaches when speech would destroy. Listening preserves strength when protest wastes it. Silence is not surrender, but delayed intention. You learn this lesson without raising your voice. It waits, patient, like a held breath. History eventually hears what silence remembers. Power does not always arrive wearing armor. Sometimes it arrives carrying ledgers and quiet orders. You feel it before anyone names it openly. The corridors grow quieter, but not more peaceful. Dispenser does not confront the queen directly. That would require courage, or at least honesty. Instead, he rearranges the air around her. Money moves first, because money moves everything. Her income thins, quietly, without formal announcement. Allowances shrink like candles left unattended. Silks are counted. Servants reconsider loyalty. You notice how often doors close early. A queen without resources learns new mathematics. The people closest to her begin disappearing. Some are reassigned with polite excuses. Others are removed for reasons never clarified. The rooms echo differently after each departure. You stand beside her, pretending nothing changes. Dispenser understands isolation better than swords. He does not need to shout to dominate. He only needs to decide who speaks. Access becomes currency, and he hoards it. The court adjusts, because courts always adjust. Soon, information reaches her last or never. Messages detour around her chambers deliberately. Meetings happen without her name included. You feel time stretch without explanation. Then the final lever is pulled. Her children are removed under official reasoning. They are relocated for safety or education. The language sounds responsible, even caring. The effect feels surgical, precise and cruel. You feel the air leave her lungs. A mother learns what helpless truly means. The children are placed with dispensers' allies. Familiar hands are replaced by strategic ones. Every visit requires permission, rarely granted. Love becomes regulated, scheduled, and supervised. A title remains, but authority evaporates. She still wears the crown in public. She still performs ceremonies when summoned. But the crown now weighs differently. It presses inward rather than lifting upward. You sense the humiliation is carefully kited. This is imprisonment without visible chains. Dispenser never calls her a prisoner. He lets the arrangement speak for itself. A queen who cannot act is harmless. A mother who cannot reach her children is quiet. Quiet, but not empty. You watch her learn the boundaries precisely. She notes which doors never reopen. She listens for footsteps that no longer arrive. She learns patience under forced stillness. Dry humor survives where dignity is rationed. A man rules beside the king. A woman waits beside her own name. The imbalance looks stable from a distance. Up close, it feels dangerously temporary. This kind of control leaves marks unseen. Power that isolates creates future resistance. Control that humiliates teaches long memory. Dispenser believes removal equals safety. History suggests removal often sharpens resolve. You carry this lesson into sleep. Titles can imprison even without walls. Silence can be enforced, but not erased. When everything is taken, intention often remains. The label arrives long after the action ends. It settles quietly, like dust on finished furniture. You hear it whispered first, then repeated with confidence. She is not called strategic, or patient, or effective. She is called something that growls when spoken. The word, she-wolf, does heavy lifting for history. You feel how the name changes the temperature. Rooms feel colder once monsters enter the story. A ruler becomes a creature, and motives become hunger. It is easier to fear teeth than decisions. Men in chronicles spill blood and earn titles. They are described as firm, decisive, or necessary. Violence under male hands becomes administration. Violence under female hands becomes pathology. You notice how language sharpens differently. This is not an accident of vocabulary. The label simplifies a complicated sequence of events. A political coup becomes a moral warning tale. The audience stops asking why power shifted. They start asking what kind of woman would dare. You sit with the word and feel its convenience. Calling her a monster saves everyone time. It removes context, pressure, and prolonged humiliation. It erases years of restraint and calculation. It replaces calls with character, which feels cleaner. Clean stories travel better than accurate ones. You imagine scribes choosing words by candlelight. Ink dries faster than empathy ever does. A wolf fits margins better than explanation. A beast does not require footnotes or patience. So the name sticks and grows teeth over time. The label outlives the woman. It passes through textbooks and conversations unchallenged. Children learn it before learning circumstances. Adults repeat it without checking sources. You realize how reputations survive by repetition alone. The irony rests quietly beneath the noise. A wolf survives by reading the environment. A wolf waits, watches, and chooses moments carefully. These are not flaws, but survival skills. History meant insult, but described competence instead. That joke writes itself without help. You feel the human cost of naming. Once labeled, listening becomes unnecessary. Understanding feels optional, even suspicious. Empathy rarely survives neglect than examine. You stand beside her in that moment. You feel the weight of being reduced, not by actions, but by descriptions chosen later. A single word carries generations of judgment. Words, once released, do not ask permission. The lesson here speaks softly but clearly. Language shapes memory more than facts alone. Who controls names controls the afterlife of stories. Power does not end when battles finish. It continues through adjectives and tone. You carry this value into rest before calling someone monstrous. Trace the pressure applied before repeating labels. Notice who benefits from them. Understanding requires more effort than fear. Fear is efficient, but truth keeps longer company. The noise fades after the victory celebrations end, torches burn lower, and footsteps sound heavier now. You feel relief settle, then something colder follows. The old tyrant falls, and chairs are rearranged. At first, the air feels lighter inside the court. Dispenser is gone, and England exhales carefully. Doors reopen, and conversations return in whispers. Promises float through halls like fresh linen. You almost believe the cycle has broken. Almost is a dangerous amount of faith. Mortimer steps forward, wearing borrowed righteousness. He speaks of order, stability, and necessary firmness. The words sound familiar, but slightly better dressed. You notice how often his voice fills rooms. Power prefers continuity over creativity. Soon, access tightens again around a single figure. Petitions pass through one set of hands. Fear returns, this time with improved organization. The court learns new rules without written instructions. You recognize the pattern before it names itself. Mortimer does not call himself a tyrant. He calls himself a guardian of fragile peace. That explanation travels well among exhausted people. After chaos, control feels like comfort. Comfort has a habit of oversaying. Isabella watches the shift with practiced stillness. She helped build the ladder now being climbed. Removing one manipulator did not remove manipulation. It only changed the face issuing orders. History rarely sets. It only reassigns roles. You feel the irony settle into the walls. Revolutions often inherit the tools they oppose. Chains are melted down, then reforged carefully. The shape changes, but weight stays familiar. That lesson arrives without asking permission. In quieter rooms, a young king observes everything. Edward grows up surrounded by calculated authority. He watches men rule without crowns or restraint. Children absorb power lessons without footnotes. By the time Edward reaches adulthood, patterns harden. He understands how quickly control can be stolen. He knows mercy often waits too long. You feel his impatience forming under ceremony. Fear teaches efficiency better than tutors ever could. When Edward finally acts, it feels abrupt, but nothing about it is truly sudden. It is reaction shaped by prolonged exposure. A response forged inside occupied corridors. Cycles end when someone breaks timing expectations. Mortimer falls the way others once did. Not because he lacks skill or ambition, but because repetition creates predictable arrogance. Predictability invites interventions. Eve, England breathes again, cautiously remembering before. The court resets chairs for another generation. Silence returns. Slightly more educated this time, the human value rests beneath these rotation. Control without accountability reproduces itself. Vying sanctify becomes violence normalized. Breaking sizing the comfort of familiar dominance. Watch who replaces the fallen, not just how. The noise fades now, and the night settles gently. The long road behind us finally grows quiet. This journey slows, and breathing becomes easier. Imagine stone halls after torches burn low. Wax cools on candle rims, leaving sweet smoke. Footsteps echo once, then choose not to return somewhere. Distant bells mark time without urgency. You can almost feel cold walls exhale. History loosens its grip, just enough to release you. Voices soften, no longer asking for attention. Power sleeps, at least for this moment. Now, let the images blur edges. Scaffolds fade back into empty squares. Crowns return to metal, ordinary and quiet. The wolf becomes a woman shaped by long nights. You are here again, safe and unhurried. The present room feels warmer by comparison. Your breathing slow, steady and familiar. The weight of centuries slips away. Stories like this ask no judgment tonight. They ask only quiet reflection before rest. Endurance remains long after noise fades. If this story stayed with you a while, you may gently, like the video before sleep. You may share it with someone who listens slowly. You may subscribe. If these nights feel familiar, there is no rush and no expectation here. History will wait patiently for another evening, so will I, when the lights are low again. Goodbye, and we will meet again.